Imagine one day, a mysterious continent suddenly rises from the ocean, and every country rushes toward it, believing they've found a land full of unlimited resources, rare species, and world-changing treasures. But the moment the first explorers step inside, that golden dream turns into a nightmare. Because this is not a treasure land, it's a death zone, where trained hunters get ripped apart, rescue teams vanish without a trace, and the monsters living there are so brutal that even elite explorers start looking like helpless prey. And this is where we meet Injo, a search and rescue specialist from the Anglers, a man who is supposed to enter the most dangerous places and bring people back alive. But when we first see him, he's not fighting monsters or saving anyone. He's lying in bed like the world can burn without him. His partner Shiru tries to wake him up, saying the day has already started. But Injo doesn't care about the morning, the weather, or life itself, because right now his only mission is to stay under the blanket for 5 more minutes. Then Shiru gives him breakfast, and it's not some hero meal, it's just plain toast because they are so broke they can't even afford butter. And to make things worse, she tells him that by tomorrow, even this toast might disappear because their electricity is about to get cut off. Injo looks at his sad breakfast and wonders why bad luck keeps chasing him like a personal enemy. At the same time, a weak, sick-looking boy is walking through the streets, barely holding himself together until he reaches a notice board searching for the one high-level angler who might be able to help him. A moment later, someone knocks at Injo's entrance, and when Shiru opens the door, that same boy is standing there, pale, exhausted, and desperate. He only manages to say, "Please, help me," before collapsing right in front of her. A few minutes later, the boy wakes up, and Injo calmly calls him by name, Krikes, which instantly surprises him, until he notices Injo simply read it from his ID card. Injo then asks why a young rich kid like him came all the way here, and Krikes explains that he wants them to save his older brother. He says he will pay anything, but Injo refuses right away, telling him that a brother's life is not something you can put a price on, and even if he did, it would be far too expensive. But Krikes doesn't back down. He quietly says money doesn't matter, because with his illness, he probably doesn't have much time left anyway, and if needed, they can even take the insurance money after he dies. That one line hits the room hard. Injo's lazy face finally changes, and after glancing at Shiru, he decides to hear the boy's story. Krikes explains that his parents and older brother once went to the new continent as explorers, and even though he begged them not to go, they promised they would return with a pomatir, a rare item that could cure his disease. So he stayed home and waited day after day, hoping they would come back smiling. But when someone finally knocked on the door, it wasn't good news. It was his brother Kunoris, badly injured, covered in pain, crying in front of him while repeating that everything was his fault because their parents didn't survive. After that, Kunoris kept training harder and harder, and a few months later, he even earned an A-rank explorer license, which made Krikes proud again. Then one day, Kunoris promised he would go back and get the pomatir no matter what, and once Krikes was cured, they would both go see McMel together. Krikes believed him, but too much time has passed, and Kunoris still hasn't returned. That is why he has come to Injo. Injo finally accepts the job, though in his usual careless way, saying he'll do it because he can still sell the pomatir for a good price. Soon after, they take a helicopter toward the fortress city on the continent, while Shiru heads to a completely white place to begin her own work. During the journey, Injo explains that vehicles on this continent are easy targets for monsters, so they first need to reach the Bastion city, and from there, they use a trained creature from the land itself to move forward. Normally, only high-ranking explorers are allowed to enter this continent, but anglers are different, because when someone's life is at risk, they have permission to go where others can't. Soon, they reach the edge of the Great Forest, a massive place that covers almost 80% of the 6th district, and from here, even their trained animal refuses to move because that forest scares beasts more than humans. So now they have to continue on foot. As Krikes controls the small robot following Injo from a distance, Injo walks beside him and explains the dark truth behind the pomatir. It isn't some beautiful miracle flower. It grows from piles of dead bodies, yet people still risk everything for it because it is said to give a person 10 times the vitality of a healthy body. Injo then asks what Krikes wants to do if he survives, and the boy says he wants to become a lecher, someone who can create physical objects by will alone. Most people think that kind of power is impossible, but Krikes still believes in it. Suddenly, weakness hits his body, and he asks to rest for a moment. Injo talks with Zero, and right then, a fruit drops perfectly into his hand like the forest itself just sent room service. He gives it to Krikes and tells him to eat quickly because it will help his condition, explaining that it is a lotto radish, but if it is not eaten within 5 minutes after being harvested, it becomes poisonous. Krikes is confused because he has no idea where the fruit came from, but they keep moving. Then they see a man ahead, crying, shaking, and begging for help. Krikes immediately says they should save him, but Injo warns him not to step closer, because if he does, he will die. To prove it, Injo throws a stone near the man, and in the next second, 3 monsters burst out from underground, making Creeks freeze in shock. Injo explains that the crying man is only bait, used by those monsters to trap kind-hearted humans. Creeks walks away with a heavy heart, thinking they should at least stop the man's pain, while Injo coldly says there is nothing for him to gain from doing that. But then, with one small movement of his hand, he wipes out the 3 monsters and the creature controlling the man, ending his suffering without making a big speech. A little later, while they continue deeper into the forest, Injo's device suddenly catches a signal, and he tells Creeks that this tool can detect explorer badges, which means if the signal is active, Kunoris is still alive and should be close. Just when hope returns to Creeks' face, Shiru warns Injo that trouble is coming. A flock of Sprinzhawks is heading straight for them. Injo tells Creeks to wait there while he handles the problem ahead, and then his lazy attitude disappears in an instant. He moves so fast it barely looks human, summons a sword into his hand, leaps into the air, and starts cutting through the flying monsters one by one with terrifying precision. While Injo is clearing the sky, Creeks notices someone walking toward him and thinks it must be Injo returning. But when the figure gets closer, his eyes widen because standing in front of him is not Injo, it's his missing brother, Kunoris. Meanwhile, Injo finishes off another monster with a clean move using a powerful thread, then calmly leaves the area without even noticing the strange plant growing from the bodies behind him. On the other side, Kunoris tells Creeks he should never have come here because this place is too dangerous, but Creeks says he only came because he was worried. Then Kunoris tells him to look around, and Creeks finally notices a strange plant rising nearby. His breath stops for a second because the thing he came searching for might be right in front of him. Creeks slowly steps closer, and his face turns pale the moment he realizes the strange plant in front of him is the poma plant, the very thing he came here to find. But when he gets closer, he notices the remains of bodies scattered around it, and fear hits him instantly, while Kunoris calmly tells him that he still hasn't managed to make it bear fruit because at first, 2 bodies were not enough, and even after gathering all those allies, it still wasn't enough. And before Creeks can fully understand those words, Kunoris pierces him from behind and throws him to the ground. The plant immediately starts drinking his blood, and at last, the fruit begins to appear, making Kunoris smile like a man who has finally reached his dream. And just as he prepares to finish his own brother for good, Injo arrives out of nowhere. He quickly checks Creeks' condition and tells Zero to give him first aid, then turns to Kunoris with cold anger, saying he already knows the truth, that Kunoris was the one who killed his parents and even his own allies. Kunoris doesn't deny it. He admits everything without regret, saying Creeks would never fully recover even if he ate the fruit, so if he was going to die anyway, it was better for his life to help someone who could make better use of that power. Cal reminds him that Creeks, even while standing at the edge of death, risked everything just to come rescue him, and at that moment Shiru manages to revive the boy, but his body is already too weak to survive for long. Then Creeks, barely holding on to life, begs Injo to save his brother, because he believes Kunoris must be controlled by some monster just like the crying man from before. In his eyes, Kunoris was always his hero, someone who deserved to become a great explorer, and Injo understands the heart behind that request. Creeks thanks him softly, saying he had so much fun exploring beside him, and then his eyes close as he sees his parents waiting for him, finally reunited with the family he missed so much. For a second, the forest becomes painfully quiet. Then Kunoris starts laughing, and that laugh is the last mistake he makes because Injo smashes his face with one brutal punch while thinking that the real monster of McMell is not only the creature or the forest, but the greed and hatred it pulls out from humans. And once someone becomes this corrupted, the only way to save them is death. Furious, Kunoris eats the poma fruit and his physical strength and endurance explode, allowing him to land a heavy blow on Injo. But Injo answers with a clean counterattack that sends him flying and leaves him badly wounded on the ground. As Kunoris stares up at the sky, he remembers how his brother once spoke about becoming a lecher, something Kunoris had mocked as a childish legend. But then he looks at Injo and realizes he is seeing one of those impossible people right before his eyes, just as a massive iron gauntlet crashes down and crushes him. A few minutes later, Injo walks away because the job is finished, and Kunoris has been saved in the only way left. Rest now, soldier. You already gave everything you had. Meanwhile, at the District 7 Research Center, several researchers watch the situation carefully, hoping their plan will work exactly as designed, but then an alarm suddenly blares through the building, and they rush to the security sector, only to see through the cameras that the entire facility is surrounded by monsters. At the same time, Injo remembers his childhood, a moment when he felt like he could no longer move forward, until a man came to him and said said he still couldn't give up because there was still hope pushing him ahead. Then he hears Shiru's voice while she is cornered, asking if this feeling is despair, and Injo wakes up in fear. Elsewhere, a girl searches for the place written in her instructions, and when she reaches the door, she remembers her father telling her that if anything ever happened to him, she must go to this person. She knocks, and Shiru opens the door, slightly annoyed when she sees another pretty client with strong, main character girl energy, but she still lets her inside and tells Injo they have work. The girl is shocked because the man in front of her is the legendary angler. A few minutes later, Injo understands that she wants him to save her father, but he asks why she came to him when the company her father works for should have its own rescue team. Amelia explains that because of what happened, she has no direct communication with her father, and he once told her that if anything ever happened, she had to come to them. So she assumes there must be some connection between him and Injo. Injo remembers something, but still says there is no need for him to help and refuses the mission, which hurts Amelia deeply. She tells him her father's life is at risk, but Injo coldly replies that many people are in the same situation, and that is unfortunate. Amelia gets angry at how heartless he sounds and stands up in frustration, but after a few seconds she forces herself to calm down, sits again, and tells him he is the only person she can trust, calling him Shin. That name strikes something inside Injo. A memory flashes through him, and he finally accepts the request, but tells her his name is Injo. Amelia is confused because the document had another name written on it, but Injo says it does not matter, because anything Shuin could do, he can do too. Sometime later, Amelia arrives at one of the bases, and when they ask about Injo, she lies and says he is her younger brother, so they allow him to pass. Injo warns her not to mock his height, and at that moment he contacts Shiru, asking her to scan the area. Shiru agrees, and using her power, she makes a huge screen appear in front of her along with the robot that serves as her weapon. Meanwhile, inside the researcher's base, the staff watch in horror as the beasts easily overpower the guards, even though the guards keep firing non-stop, and everyone begins to fear the worst. At the same time, Amelia and Injo ride toward the facility on the rescue team's aircraft, where they are told that the research center is surrounded by at least 30 gel bears, creatures that usually feed on minerals. But once they become aggressive, their skin turns completely into steel and they become extremely violent. The rescue commander proudly acts like this will not be a problem once they arrive, and the soldiers laugh with confidence. But Injo quietly says that more than 850,000 people disappear on that continent every year, and only 1/3 of them return alive. The soldiers confidently answer that they will be part of that surviving third and rescue everyone without issue. Injo does not look convinced. A moment later, they fly over the research center, giving hope to the trapped people below, while the aircraft starts firing at the beasts, dropping them one after another. Injo comments that something feels strange, and the rescue leader says their bullets are made from a mineral found on that continent, which is why they work so well. But Injo clarifies that this is not what he meant. He doesn't understand why these bears would attack a research center in the first place. The man gives no real answer, and soon the soldiers land, continuing to eliminate every target until the area is secured within minutes and not a single beast is left alive. Just then, Shiru contacts Injo with important information, so he asks her to send the image, and when a screen appears in front of him, everyone sees a gigantic monster moving toward them. They instantly recognize it as a Skell-Gargon, and Injo says this creature should not be here, but it was likely drawn in by the blood spilled from the Gel Bears, something the others still fail to fully understand. Seconds later, giant rocks begin raining down toward the soldiers. The aircraft is forced to use its artillery just to destroy the rocks coming straight at them, but the monster attacks faster and faster, shaking the aircraft and destroying the rescue commander's secret advantage. With heavy losses piling up and no better option, the commander orders a retreat. Amelia is horrified because they are leaving the people inside the research center to die, but Injo calmly opens the emergency hatch and asks her if she really wants to save her father. If she does, she has to come with him. Amelia trusts him, grabs onto him, and together they jump from the aircraft, descending with the help of Shiru's device, while the commander watches in disbelief and wonders who Injo really is. Honestly, he might as well be a tiny god. A few seconds after jumping from the aircraft, Injo tells Amelia to make that missile work because it is the only real chance to save her father, and while she is still trying to understand the situation, he places his hands forward and activates his power, shocking her as the entire missile begins to rise and reshape, turning within seconds into a proper launch base that can aim directly at the target. Then Injo calmly asks if they should fire it at the monster or aim it at the research center instead, which instantly terrifies terrifies Amelia, but Injo tells her there are still many things she doesn't know about Magmel, and without wasting another second, he runs off. From a high point, he grabs a megaphone and speaks toward the research center, warning the people inside that if they want to survive, they must release the hostages they are keeping there. Amelia's father is stunned because this means their secret has been exposed, and when he looks at the person speaking, he recognizes him as Shuin, so he immediately orders everyone to obey and release the cubs, shocking the entire staff with that sudden decision. Injo is glad they understood, and only then do we realize the high place he was standing on was not a cliff or tower, but the head of that gigantic monster itself, which is completely insane, because bro is casually standing on a walking disaster like it's a rooftop. Then he jumps down and starts running toward the research center while the monster chases him, and once he gets close enough, he orders Amelia to activate the missile. She does it right away, but Injo knows a simple movement from that monster could easily dodge the impact, so he refuses to let that happen. He creates a gigantic glove, forces the monster into position, almost apologizing to it because today is simply not its lucky day, and in the next second, the missile pierces straight through it, causing a massive explosion that completely destroys the beast. Moments later, Amelia desperately searches for Injo but cannot see him anywhere, and for a second she fears the worst, until Khan appears beside her and protects her from the rain of blood falling from the sky. At the same time, Amelia's father looks at all the captive Gel Bear cubs and finally releases them. A little later, the rescue aircraft returns to pick everyone up, while Injo quietly watches the cubs trying to move their dead mothers and fathers. And the scene hits harder than any monster attack because those babies do not understand that their parents are never getting up again. Then the rescue leader explains that the blood of Gel Bears is used to create the strongest material in the world, and Injo instantly understands the cruelty behind it because they were using the cubs' blood to kill their own parents. His eyes turn cold, carrying the kind of killing intent that makes the man freeze, while Amelia's father asks if Injo is related to Shin, but Injo only tells him to go greet his daughter. A few days later, news spreads that the rescue leader's aircraft mysteriously crashed, leaving him badly injured, and honestly, that timing feels a little too suspicious. Meanwhile, Injo talks with Amelia, who tells him her father resigned from that company on the same day and will never return to that work again, which Injo believes is the best decision. After saying goodbye to her, he speaks with Shiru and tries to cheer her up, telling her she should not feel insecure around other girls because someday she will grow too. A few days later, Injo is sitting with Zero and watching television, where an auction is being held for a bird that he recognizes from District 45, while at the same time he tries to steal Shiru's pudding, but Shiru is too selfish with her dessert and refuses to share. So Injo secretly grabs some anyway, while they are shocked to see the bidding for that bird reach 1 billion. Injo wonders why any person would need that much money, but a few minutes later he says they should ask the people who bought the bird directly because they are already standing at the entrance. Soon after, a man named Dyson sits before them, and Injo assumes he must be extremely rich to offer so much money for that bird. Dyson admits it and explains that he once owned a service company, later became interested in tourism, then security, but now he feels his whole life somehow led him to meet that bird, which is why he has come to hire Injo's services. Injo does not say much, so Dyson continues, explaining that he wants to find his old friends who disappeared in District 45. Injo immediately guesses they were poisoned because that area is filled with poisonous animals and plants, meaning they must have been very naive to enter a place like that. But Dyson, with empty eyes, confesses that they were immigrants, and this happened more than 30 years ago, back when Magmel was not understood the way it is now, and immigration to that land was still allowed. The people living there were closely connected, and Dyson was always with his two best friends, Stua and Stein. For children back then, Magmel felt like the perfect place to play, explore, and spend time together, until one day Dyson came up with a stupid game. They would collect as many insects as possible and find out which one had the strongest poison. He admits that at the time, he did not understand how serious that idea was because he was only a child trying to have fun. Injo then explains to Shiru that this is not the first time he has heard of something like this because some people are obsessed with watching insects fight inside closed spaces just to see which one carries the deadliest venom. So Injo assumes Dyson's friends were poisoned, and Dyson confirms it, saying he was the lucky one who managed to escape. But he never told anyone what happened, not even a single word, because his family simply fled the continent and he did nothing to save his friends. For many years, he tried to forget it by burying himself in work, eventually building a huge fortune, but the guilt never let him rest. And that is why he bought the bird no matter the price, because it comes from District 45 and has the ability to neutralize all kinds of poison. Injo bluntly tells him his friends are most likely dead, but Dyson still wants to go because he feels he must at least try to make up for what happened. Injo understands that Dyson wants to return after all these years and tell them he never forgot them, and Dyson does not deny it. His guilt is still alive, and he is ready to pay whatever Injo asks if it means being taken to his friends. Injo says his normal rescue fee is 100,000, but depending on his mood, it can cost more, and he may even add one extra condition. Dyson accepts anything, so Injo tells him to change clothes because he will need something more comfortable for going into Magmel. A few hours later, they arrive on the continent and begin moving forward, while Dyson looks around with deep nostalgia, every corner pulling old memories out of him. They stop for a short rest, and Dyson apologizes because his physical condition is terrible, but the place still fills him with emotion. He asks Injo if he has been doing rescue work for a long time, and Injo confirms it, saying as long as people pay, he gladly does the job. Just then, Shiru warns them that there is a monster ahead, though she only detected it on radar and has not seen it yet. A moment later, Injo tells Dyson to wait because he has noticed some plants ahead, and they look far too beautiful for this district. When he approaches, the plants and a hidden monster attack at once, so Injo instantly creates 2 machine guns and a pistol, firing at everything moving in front of him. Then he notices a chimera in the air, a creature that has strengthened itself by killing many living beings, and suddenly he gets caught by its threads, making Dyson panic. But Injo only smiles, summons 2 giant gloves, grabs the thread, spins the monster around, and sends it flying through the air, leaving Dyson completely shocked. Injo then picks one of the plants and says it is highly poisonous to humans, but ironically, it is a delicacy for the bird Dyson bought, and the difference between poison and medicine depends on who it affects. After walking for a few more minutes, Dyson recognizes a mark he made with his friends long ago so they would not get lost. An emotion takes over him as he starts running, remembering the path. Seconds later, they reach a clearing, but there is no house or building, only the cave where everything happened, so Injo asks Shiru to investigate. A few minutes later, they enter the cave, and Dyson remembers the old box where he and his friends excitedly tested the insects, a memory that now crushes him with regret. Just remembering their screams of pain makes him break down, and he cries helplessly, blaming himself for suggesting that horrible game. Then Injo steps closer and tells him his friends are still alive. Dyson is stunned, but nothing prepares him for what crawls out from the corner of the cave a few seconds later. It is disgusting, barely human, with traces of hair and the remains of a human face, and Dyson realizes this twisted creature must be what Stua became. Before it can attack, Injo moves Dyson out of the way, but Dyson still runs toward the monster, shouting that it has to remember him because he is its friend. Just then, another giant bat-like monster slams into the first one, and Dyson notices it resembles Stein. So hope rises inside him for a moment as he believes his friend came to protect him. But Injo saves him again because the truth is worse. Those 2 monsters are not protecting anyone. They are fighting each other. A brutal battle begins, and Dyson tries to make the bird neutralize the poison, but the force of the monster's attacks sends him crashing to the ground. Injo tells him to let him handle it, but Dyson refuses because he does not want his friends to die. Injo takes a direct hit, while Dyson ends up standing between the 2 monsters, shouting their names and telling them he came to save them. Then something unexpected happens. The monsters do not attack him. They only growl. Dyson's face lights up because it seems they still recognize him, and Injo confirms it, saying his friends are still alive and still remember him even after all these years. Dyson grabs the bird and says its blood should neutralize the poison inside his friends' bodies. Injo says it would work, but there is a cruel catch. They would have to drink the bird's blood directly, and even if they did, they would die because their bodies are no longer human, and the poison is the only thing keeping them alive. Dyson finally understands that his friends stopped being human a long time ago, and tears fall from his eyes while the 2 monsters seem to understand it too. They look at each other for a few quiet seconds, then walk toward the cave entrance, reaching the old mark that once showed the way back home. Dyson breaks down when he realizes what they are telling him. They want him to go home while they return to the cave. Injo tells him that sometimes letting someone die is also an act of mercy, but Dyson refuses to take another life from that place, so he releases the bird instead. Because even if his friends no longer look human, deep inside, he knows they are still Stua and Stein. A few days later, Dyson announces his new pudding company. However, Don cannot enjoy those puddings too much because Ciro does not allow him to eat more than 20 a day. A few days later, they go out for a walk, and Ciro starts craving some street food. But with a master move, she manages to lower the price by convincing the seller to charge the next customer more. And guess who that next customer is? Exactly, Woody. But at that moment, they suddenly hear people shouting and cheering for Belina, who is known as the Miracle Worker. Everyone admires her because she has traveled to the continent of Magmel 8 times and has always returned with miraculous news. Belina tells the crowd that she is deeply worried about the state of the world and the suffering of orphan children, so she will once again travel there to bring back life-saving medicine for them. Hearing this, the crowd cheers even louder, but Inyu silently stares at her because to him, she is not a miracle worker at all. In his eyes, she is the bloodthirsty Maria. That night, Ciro searches online for information information about Belena and finds several articles about her achievements. According to those articles, Belena was worried about the condition of orphans, so she traveled alone to Megmel, returned with a huge treasure, and used all her earnings to build an orphanage. Since then, she has continued helping orphans everywhere and has become someone many people call a saint. But Ciro cannot understand why Inyu called her a bloodthirsty Maria. The next day, Ciro uses her device to visit the orphanage, where she sees all the children laughing and playing happily. But then she notices one little girl standing away from everyone with a sad expression, and Ciro cannot stop herself from remembering her own past. Just then, Belena walks up to the girl and gently asks what happened. The girl explains that she lost her Momo, and Belena promises that they will find it. This makes the girl happy, and she hugs Belena with hope. At the same time, Belena turns her head and looks directly at Ciro, shocking her because she was supposed to be hidden. But Belena simply continues as if nothing happened and enters the orphanage. A few minutes later, Inyu arrives at the office and thinks about using the computer, but then he notices the page that was left open. After seeing the information about Belena, he realizes that Ciro had been investigating her. This makes him remember the time when he was much younger and was traveling through Magmel with Shuin. Back then, they heard a woman screaming while she was about to be attacked, so Shuin immediately jumped in to protect her from the monster. With incredible agility, Shuin dodged all of the beast's attacks, summoned a huge book to confuse it, and then knocked it unconscious with a surprise blow. Inyu came down beside him, and Shuin told the woman that it was not safe for her to be there alone. He advised her to return home before things ended badly. Belena thanked him, while young Inyu could not help feeling intrigued by her beauty and strange aura. That night, after Shuin fell asleep, Inyu quietly got up and ran off to find that woman again because he wanted to see her and had many questions. But what he saw completely horrified him. That is why, in the present, he refuses to call her a saint because to him, she is closer to a demon. A few days later, many people gather and beg Inyu to rescue Belena, but he refuses. They cannot understand why he would reject the chance to save a saint admired by the whole world. Inyu tells them that if she is truly as miraculous as they claim, then she should simply use one of her miracles to save herself. He also says they should have stopped her from going to such a dangerous place in the first place. But her followers explain that some people went with her to protect her, and now they cannot contact anyone, so they are extremely worried. Inyu only tells them that they are too naive, but Ciro steps in and says she believes Belena is a good person, so they should help her. Inyu refuses again, and then Ciro accepts the mission herself, promising that she will do everything she can and asking the followers to leave peacefully. This leaves Inyu completely shocked, and when he tries to talk to her, Ciro simply leaves to use her device. That night, Inyu takes his helicopter and heads toward Magmel with one mission in mind. Meanwhile, Belena's group is lying on the ground, with some of them already dead, while a girl stands terrified in front of a monster that slowly approaches her. At the same time, Inyu moves through the forest and notices several monsters appearing in front of him. He tries to run away, but the beasts are too fast. When he finds himself surrounded, he decides to even the situation a little by summoning several crossbows and unleashing a rain of arrows. The arrows only injure the monsters slightly, forcing them to step back. Just then, one monster roars loudly from above, and this brings back Inyu's memory of that night when he told Shuin that they should not save that woman because she was evil. But Shuin simply replied that he would save anyone in danger, whether they were good or bad, because judging them was not his decision to make. This confused Inyu even more, while Shuin hoped that one day he would understand. Back in the present, standing before that monster, Inyu knows it is extremely powerful because it even sets a tree on fire, so he summons a weapon and defends himself from its attacks. At the same time, he thinks about Shuin. He does not believe his master was wrong, but he still cannot think the same way as him. After giving the monster a small wound, he manages to make it run away. He also cuts down the burning trees to stop the fire from spreading. Even with all that power, he still feels far from reaching Shuin's level, because Shuin honestly seemed like a literal god. Sometime later, Ciro continues searching for clues and becomes horrified by the scene in front of her. Just then, Inyu arrives, sweating, and apologizes because she had to see something like this. Ciro cannot believe her eyes when she sees a dead monster, and Belena savagely pulling everything out from inside its body. When Inyu approaches her, Belena looks completely insane and says the monster parts will be worth a fortune, then continues pulling out more. Suddenly, more monsters from the pack begin surrounding them, and Inyu warns Belena that they are completely surrounded. But instead of feeling scared, Belena becomes excited because now she will have even more monster parts to sell for a fortune. She runs forward like a madwoman, and when Inyu tries to call her back, Ciro tells him not to interfere because there are too many monsters and they need to leave. She is trembling after what she saw, and Inyu understands because Belena has been consumed by the greatest evil of Magmel, so they leave. The next day, the orphanage receives the news of Belena's death. Some people cannot believe it, while others believe she has become a deity. Ciro comforts the little girl who is still suffering after losing her stuffed toy. A few hours later, Ciro and Inyu walk together while thinking about what should be considered good and what should be considered evil. But Inyu tells her that good and evil are only concepts created by humans, and they should not waste their time questioning questioning those things too much. Instead, he says they should go buy more of the food they liked so much, and just like that, they continue walking together, enjoying each other's company. In a flashback, a man thinks about how more than 30 years ago, when that new continent first appeared, countless people became interested in it because it was unknown, mysterious, and filled with dreams of wealth. Pirates, millionaires, hunters, and even manga fans all went to that continent hoping to completely change their lives, but the dangers of magmel easily destroyed most of them. And sadly, he himself was one of those fools who believed his life would change if he came there. Now he is buried halfway into the ground, unable to move at all. Suddenly, he hears the footsteps of something gigantic approaching. Terrified, he desperately tries to free himself, but it is impossible. Then he sees a colossal monster stop right above him, and just to show how scared he is, the fear is so intense that he even wets his pants. The man knows there is no way to escape, and when he hears the growling sound from the monster's stomach, he understands that his end is near. So at that moment, he begins remembering the life he lived. And now, let's witness this sad story.